Well, this certainly is not the trade update in which I thought we would be talking about with the Canucks, but TSN and the Chris Johnston crew went out there and gave us a scoop that I think is worth discussing here on the channel. So, without further ado, let's go out there and cite our sources. Links are going to be in the description to all the necessary pieces, including our ExpressVPN affiliate link. Go out there and use Express, use the affiliate in the description. You can get some free months, and you help out the channel in the process. But the primary link, which this video is going to use for its video content, is a video 5-minute segment from TSN's Insider Trading yesterday. No, this was 2 days ago, excuse me. January 14th, 2025. Insider Trading. The Canucks' decisions could be holding up the trade market. The article is great because it includes not only the video of the Insider Trading crew going out there and talking about this stuff, but there also is a transcription of what is said on the broadcast. And while it's true there are other rumors and stuff that are discussed in this video, like John Klingberg, like Rasmus Andersson, like the LA Kings and Drew Doughty, I wanted to go over what Chris Johnston went out there and spoke about in regards to Vancouver, and how this entire Miller-Pettersson thing might actually have a much bigger impact on the market as a whole than we would have anticipated. Let's go out there and read this. The Canucks are holding up the trade market with the Miller-Pettersson saga. The Vancouver Canucks have been dominating headlines recently with the whole JT Miller-Elias Pettersson situation. Likely tough on both of those guys, tough on the entire team, James Duthie said. But until a deal happens, CJ, how does it affect the entire trade market? Chris Johnston replies saying, well, there's certainly a sense out there, I'd say, that this situation is holding things up. That makes some sense. We're talking about significant players here. As Vancouver continues to work through its options, according to the sources I've talked to, there's a sense league-wide that JT Miller is the more likely of the two players to be moved. Now, JT has a no-movement clause. None of this has been his idea. You talk about it being tough on the players and the people involved, but I think the teams that have been around this have the sense that if it's the right situation, he is likely to move on. We might not see much action otherwise league-wide until something happens here with Vancouver, because this is such a big domino that's out there that's kind of teetering and hasn't fallen yet. And obviously this could take some more time before something happens. And so with this, we see this all the time. Every year there seems to be one big domino that causes everything else to fall. I'd think that last year it might have been the Elias Lindholm trade. You can say that was the big domino. The year before that, you can say it was the Bo Horvat trade, which was also a pretty big deal. I think, the Canucks are one of these teams that seems to set the market here. Early trades before everybody else gets involved, before the entire trade deadline rush of the season comes and goes in March. You can usually see Vancouver making a blockbuster here. That's just kind of a staple of what Patrik Allvin and Jim Rutherford have built over the past few years. And so with Elias Pettersson and JT Miller also being in this situation, yeah, you bet your behind that whatever the prices for these guys end up being, it'll in some way shape up the rest of the market, because it's like, hey, if teams are going out there and talking to Vancouver about Petey and Miller, if you have a whole bunch of teams, like literally every NHL team should probably have talked to Patrik Allvin at this point, because it's only the reasonable thing to do. If you have every other team going out there and talking about it, then that means that every other team is going out there and waiting to see which hyena takes the bait, who is actually going to bite, and what is that price going to be. I know it's difficult to try to use these trade prices as comparable prices for other trades, because it's like, hey, what other forwards are on the market like Pettersson or Miller? A top-of-the-line center, 100-point potential, who is going through a down year, who's in this controversy because apparently he's not getting along well with one of the players on his team. Like, I understand that it might be difficult to use these prices that we get in whatever trade goes down as comparable figures, but it does seem like this will be the first domino to fall. Of course, outside of any of the minor trades like what we had seen yesterday, the Isaac Phillips and Dmitry Kuzmin trade between the Jets and the Chicago Blackhawks, or any of the other moves that have been kind of pending for a while. The Jacob Trouba trade took a while to get done. You get what I mean. So when it comes to Miller and Pettersson, I also do find it interesting that Chris Johnston said teams are getting the sense that Vancouver is pushing Miller more in a trade. And that makes sense to me too. Miller is older. Miller, even though he is cheaper and he has had more points lately than Petey, Miller has been in a spot where I think because of the age and because of some of the negatives to his game, the lack of back-checking and now the potential distrust out of his head coach and Rick Tocchet, because Tocchet has been starting to play him less, who really knows? Because of a lot of these recent factors, I feel like Miller is the guy whose name is probably going to be tossed out there more. I get it, Pettersson is more expensive. You can say that Pettersson has been more disappointing as well, but I do generally think that the Canucks would want to believe in the age in Pettersson more so. And I don't know how much of this is a pride thing as well. Like, oh, we just gave this guy an $11.6 million contract last year, so we can't give up on him now, right? We signed Miller longer before then, so we have the right to go out there and make our retrospective corrections and say, oh yeah, sorry, this was the wrong guy. We probably should have kept Bo Horvat. Yeah, you know what, I'm thinking about that now. The Canucks really should have kept Bo, shouldn't they? But Johnston does say that even though this trade thing was never Miller's idea, he would be open to a move. I mean, we've been seeing some other teams get tossed out there. Oh, he'd be willing to wave to the Rangers, and 2 years ago it was, oh, would he wave to the Penguins and all that. There was a lot of conversation about JT Miller trade stuff over the past few years. And 2 years ago especially, it was because the guy was playing very poorly. Like, it's not like he wasn't converting on his chances like Pettersson last year, it's that he actually was bad. He was doing bad things that hurt the team in terms of his back-checking and his lack of effort and his turnovers. It was really, really bad 2 years ago. Last year, he revived himself with the 100-point year, but now things have kind of gotten back to that. Maybe not as bad as they were 2 years ago, but JT certainly has not been playing at a 100-point form this season. I mean, he's got 29 points in 33 games played. Elias Pettersson has 29 points in 37 games played, so technically Miller's the better player this year. It's just difficult, man. It's really, really tough to acknowledge the Vancouver Canucks top guys being as hollow this season compared to last, with the exception of Quinn Hughes. Quinn has been amazing. The Canucks are wasting an incredible top-tier year out of Quinn Hughes, a Hart caliber year, a season where he's on pace for more points than he had last year. How ridiculous is this going to get? And so if the Vancouver Canucks make a trade for one of these guys, a Miller or a Pettersson or whatever, then I hope to goodness gracious that's the spark that the other guy needs to start producing more. If they trade away Miller and Petey starts producing like he did when Miller took his leave of absence earlier in November, then okay, whoop-de-doo. That fixes the Canucks. They can make the playoffs and they can try to win a cup while Quinn's still on that massive steal of a contract. And I guess only like 10 or 20% of me is actually curious as to what other trades could be going down once the Pettersson-Miller deal gets done. Like, oh, all these other trades are being held up because Pettersson and Miller are still in the market. Like, are we just going to see an avalanche of trades and big moves and guys getting moved? Is Taylor Hall going to get traded? Is Zadorov going to get traded? Rasmus Andersson is not going to get traded, so we can't talk about him anymore. Is, I don't know, Pierre Engvall going to get traded? Is anybody else in the East going to move over to the West? There are a lot of names that can be tossed out there in these trade ideas, but if Vancouver is the one that's holding them all up, if this is the biggest domino, then I kind of wonder what our trade landscape is going to look like by the time March rolls around. Is Vancouver still going to have Pettersson and Miller on the team? Or are they just going to wait until the offseason for either of these guys to get moved? You can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as to what CJ is talking about in insider trading. Do you think the Vancouver Canucks are the ultimate domino, the biggest, most baddest team on the market whose entire trade situation is going to dictate the rest of the NHL? You can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Also, the regular article and video will be in the description if you want to go ahead and click that as well. Go out there, give TSN their ad views, or read what else it is that Johnston and Drager and the crew talk about. Check out ExpressVPN if you do need a VPN. The link in the description also gives us a kickback as well. Thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.